Thank you for taking a moment to watch this video. And on this particular training, we're going to pick up where we left off on our last training, which was installing and linking our PhoneBurner account. Now we're going to move forward and we're going to start to set up the sync. So I'm going to click on Set Up Sync. Now, right now, the only thing this app is going to do is sync contacts between HubSpot and PhoneBurner. So that's the only option or object that we can select here. So we're going to go ahead and click Next. And within the sync rules, the first thing we need to define is which records we're going to sync between the two systems, right? What records from PhoneBurner and HubSpot need to be syncing between those two systems? Now, before we start diving into how to do this, I want to talk to you about a couple different things here. So there are two types of people that are using this data sync, in my opinion. You've got the people who have all their data in HubSpot, and there are specific records in HubSpot that they just want to power through. They've got this large data set in HubSpot, and there's a specific set of records that they want to call on a regular basis or whatever, but all of their data exists in HubSpot, and they're just trying to call through those records faster. Now, the other type of person is somebody who wants to keep their HubSpot contact manager as clean as possible, so they're loading a lot of unqualified data into PhoneBurner, and they're only taking qualified data and syncing that over to HubSpot. And depending on who you are, will determine how you're going to set up which records to sync. For example, if I'm using PhoneBurner to call unqualified data, and I only want to send qualified data over to HubSpot, then which records do I sync from PhoneBurner would be a filtered list. We're not going to sync all contacts from PhoneBurner to HubSpot. We're going to use some sort of a filter. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. One of the most popular options would be the current folder option. You see, on the PhoneBurner system, we use folders to help us manage and organize the data within the PhoneBurner CRM. And so you could set up a rule that says, hey, I only want to sync records over to HubSpot once a contact record has been put into a specific folder. Let's say, for example, my follow-up folder. So once a contact is a follow-up, now I want them to sync over to HubSpot, and I'm going to have some stuff going on in HubSpot to that contact. And so that's one way, using filters to bring over just a certain specific type of contact from PhoneBurner over to HubSpot. Now, the other option, the other person, is somebody who has all of their data in HubSpot, and now they're trying to define what records need to be called in PhoneBurner. So there are a few different ways that you can handle that. Now, of course, you could still sync all of your records from HubSpot to PhoneBurner and then filter the data once it's over in PhoneBurner. Or you can set it up so that only contacts that are a part of a specific list will start to sync over to PhoneBurner. And here you can see I created a list in HubSpot called Sync to PhoneBurner. So once a record qualifies to be a part of this list, only then would it sync over to PhoneBurner. Now, I do want to point out, if you do set it up so that it filters by list membership, once a record syncs over to PhoneBurner, it's now synced. A contact that no longer qualifies to be a part of that list is not going to be deleted from PhoneBurner. We'll talk about how to manage the data between the two systems later on in the training. So as you can see, there's a couple things that you need to consider when you're setting up your sync rules. But I will point this out. If you're not quite sure what you want to do, you can always just sync all contacts. And then you can filter the data that comes over to PhoneBurner. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk about filtering as we get further down into the training and what fields you can map between the two systems. So if you're just not quite sure exactly how you're going to deal with everything, you can of course just sync everything over and deal with filters on the two different systems once the data is there. But let's go down and look at a couple of the other things here. So the next option here is resolving data conflicts. So if a record is updated on the PhoneBurner side and also on the HubSpot side, maybe there's something that caused a change to happen in both systems. And so now there's a conflict. We got a record update on both sides and they're trying to resolve that conflict, right? Which one should win? You need to decide which one is most likely going to have the most up-to-date information in there with this sync. I'm going to let you make that decision. Now let's move down to the Manage Duplicate section. Only sync contacts with an email address. I highly recommend that you only sync contacts between PhoneBurner and HubSpot if they have an email address. If they don't have an email address, you run the risk of the system, the data syncing system, to create duplicates. Because HubSpot is going to use that email address as the unique identifier between the two systems. And if there is no email address and they're syncing, it's possible it could create a loop and just keep creating multiple records between the two systems. So again, I recommend that you only sync contacts with an email address. And the final two options in the read-only rules, I'm not going to get into the details on those. You can review those on your own. Those are the three main things that you need to consider when setting up your sync rules. Which records to sync, how you're going to resolve the data conflicts, and managing duplicates. Again, I recommend only syncing contacts with an email address. That's it for the sync rules training. Thanks for taking a moment to watch this video, and happy dialing.